Claressa Shields trainer John David Jackson ranks Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury ahead of Anthony Joshua. Despite his win, said he could have did a little bit more, but he did what he had to do to win. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also, subscribe to the channel for the latest and greatest in boxing if you want to become part of the gang. Notification gang, please hit the bell icon. Shout out to the super chats, channel donations, the Venmo donations, and the Patreon family. We working. Sign up for ESPN Plus below using my link. It does help the channel. Excuse me. Trainer, former trainer of Kovalev, current trainer of Claressa Shields, two-time Olympic gold medalist. John David Jackson did an interview, link in the description, and he gave his thoughts on Joshua's performance versus Ruiz 2, where he reclaimed his belt. He says, and I quote, "The fight went exactly how I thought it would go. It was a safe fight, a smart fight. You can't blame Joshua for what he did, because why get knocked out a second time if you don't have to? Could he have done more? Probably. Should he have done more? He did what he had to do to win the fight. It may not have been pretty in some people's eyes, but it was what he needed to do to become a champion again, and that's what he did." I would put him in the top 5. For me, Wilder is number 1. Fury gets number 2, and then you got to pick Anthony Joshua at that point. I would tell him that there's someone he should stay away from right now. It would be Wilder, who is on a high. He has that right hand, and Joshua still gets hit with the right hand. So right now, you want to leave him alone. Fury might outbox him. Those are two fighters he should leave alone. This is coming from John David Jackson. He also weighed in on a potential fight for Anthony Joshua. He said he should leave USYK alone as well, because USYK is slick, he's crafty. Joshua is still too tight. No one has shown him how to get loose. If they've shown him, then he's not grasping it. There are certain fighters to leave alone. If you have mandatories to make, then make them. If one of your mandatories are USYK, then give that belt away. Just give it away. We'll fight later on in the unification and make some real money. I'm not saying he's not making money now, but it might be bigger in the future. Joshua, he has to go back to the drawing board and keep learning. He still had things he needs to work on to become even better and an even better fighter. But in his last performance, he did what he had to do to win, and he's happy with that. Definitely it helped him out, being smaller. So that's from John David Jackson. Listen, new media, like I keep telling you, you notice the same things that I say keep popping up. After I say them, somehow, some way, they keep popping up. Professional trainers. And, you know, I totally agree with John David Jackson 1,000%. In fact, even so much as to say my top 3 heavyweight list is exactly where his is. You know, I would have Luis Ortiz, you know, probably in Joshua's spot. But just to give Joshua credit because he's a champion again, that's the only reason. But I think Luis Ortiz, if he's mentally right from 2 Wilder knockouts, especially the last one being brutal, 1-punch knockout, that's like irrefutable, I think Joshua would have a lot of problems with Luis Ortiz. Because like John David Jackson is telling you, a professional fighter who's fought guys like Bernard Hopkins in his career and is trainer to a 2-time gold medalist, Claressa Shields. John David Jackson, he's, you know, phenomenal brain in boxing. And some trainers like him, because they don't do too much, they don't always get the full credit. Like, what I mean by do too much is I don't think he so much cares about being in the headlines. Yeah, he was in the headlines for, you know, when him and Kovalev were going back and forth, but I don't think he prefers that. I think Kovalev disrespected him, and, you know, they said their own piece in the media, and that was that. But I don't think he's not a guy who's like starving for the fame. He's just trying to take care of the fighters, train them to the best of their capability. Because you never really hear Claressa Shields being talked for, like kind of like how Abel Sanchez did for Triple G, where Triple G would kind of play the background and Abel Sanchez at the time, his then trainer, would do kind of the interviews for Triple G and say a lot of stuff on his behalf. You don't really see that with John David Jackson. So when he does talk, it's usually more so boxing related. Very, very scientific, and he knows firsthand because he's a fighter. He's saying Joshua's too stiff, so Tyson Fury is going to give him problems, which is the same reason. Tyson Fury's just big. He can give anyone problems because he can box and he can move, and he's almost crazy. So that helps him because that makes him a little bit more like hard to read, because you don't really, he does weird things. I mean, we're talking about the #1 puncher in the division, and he's putting his hands behind his back. Most people aren't going to try to do that, but he did that with Wilder, and he was coming off of 2 tune-up fights to try to frustrate Wilder. I don't know, and I don't think he should do that again because Wilder was missing, and he kind of got in a rhythm, but I think Wilder's has learned. But needless to say, I agree with John David Jackson. Wilder is #1. I also think he's the most, he has the most momentum, so he's #1 because he's kind of dictating the sport, face of boxing. People are checking for Wilder fights. People like Joe Rogan and Logan Paul and Ryan Garcia, guys with phenomenal fan bases on social media, they're talking about and posting Wilder fights. The thing for Joshua, like John David Jackson is also saying, similar, almost if not exact, what I said. The thing is, Joshua, he got the belts back. He won the belts, but did he win the hearts of the people with the performance? Now, I've went over this subject time and time again. Winning, that is the most important thing, like John David Jackson is saying, is better than getting knocked out again. So I commend Joshua for just being disciplined and getting it right the second time. I do think Andy Ruiz's preparation played a part into it because he didn't provide the same obstacles and the same pressure, didn't come in any type of fighting shape. Again, this is none of Joshua's concern, but that's what was across from him in the ring. So I factor that in. I'm not going to play a blind eye when, the camp is saying that he didn't train. He's admitting he didn't train, and his performance is night and day from his first performance, and he hit a career high. He ain't weighed this much since he turned pro, weighing 285. I thought it was a little bit of skullduggery because he came in so high, but come to find out, this was really his weight. So the proof is in the pudding. There's videos of him eating pizza. It looked like, he slacked off, and he really, I guess he thought Joshua was a punk and couldn't make any adjustments, and Joshua was soft. He was going to get to him no matter what weight. And then he got there on the night and laid an egg. Again, these aren't Joshua's issues, but it's still what Joshua was up against. But just like John David Jackson, I still seen the flaws. We seen really a horrible Andy Ruiz who looked nothing like the first fight, couldn't even string together 2-3 punches in a row, and had no real speed or mobility. And again, you could say for whatever reason, excuse. The bottom line is Andy Ruiz wasn't really aggressive on the attack. And I don't think it's because of Joshua is this Mayweather type boxer. Again, he did what he had to do against the man opposite from him. So he gets credit for that. But it's going to be a different night if you're in there with Tyson Fury, if you're in there with Luis Ortiz, who was in phenomenal shape versus Wilder, and more aggressive, taller than Andy Ruiz, longer arms, 500 amateurs. These are different fights. And, of course, Wilder's a different fight. So, I agree with what John David Jackson is saying here. I think Joshua, Usyk, the only thing he said about Usyk, I don't know. I'm not 100% sold because I don't think Usyk really looked great versus Chaz Tablespoon. So I don't know that. I think Joshua's size would make that potentially interesting. But if he can't catch him, or if they both try to box, then I don't know what will happen. But that, to me, the Usyk is a little bit of asterisk. I think the people that Joshua will stay away from for sure would be Wilder and Tyson Fury. And while we're on the topic, these two guys that John David Jackson has as #1 and 2, they're fighting each other in February. So really, there would be no reason to stay away from two guys because it's going to be decided in February who is the best out of that particular fight, So it's going to be keep away with the belts that Joshua has. I don't think he goes near Wilder Fury winner. And, you know, we may see Eddie Hearn's games talk about Wilder and, you know, say Wilder Fury won't sell, or I heard ticket sales are going bad. You know, nobody wants to see Wilder and Fury, and Wilder got outboxed the first fight. So, you know, just hating. But nonetheless, I think most people in boxing are full aware that February decides the #1 heavyweight in the division, period. Joshua, like John David Jackson is saying, like I've been saying, he did what he had to do to win. He won the belts. I don't know that he won the hearts of people. He's supposed to be a knockout artist. He says he doesn't even know how to score boxing because he's so busy about the knockout. But he had to employ a different strategy. He also has an old video that I made a video about where he ridiculed Tyson Fury for boxing and running for 12 rounds versus Klitschko. And then, you know, if that's the case, he said Tyson Fury stole a treasure from Klitschko because he didn't bang it out. So if that's the case in Tyson Fury versus Klitschko, then what did Joshua do versus Ruiz when he absolutely wouldn't engage? Henceforth, why you have John David Jackson, fighter turned trainer, who's saying, could he have done more? Probably. The bottom line is, I think the Ruiz fights have now shifted the overall perception of Joshua, and not in a good way. One fight, he got, you know, destroyed, lost all the rounds. Came back, he redeemed himself at least with Ruiz and broke even, but it still showed that they are not comfortable in any style if it's just boxing. Like if Joshua can't walk you down and get you out of there, or if he has to worry about, you know, your power like Wilder, these are going to be difficult, different fights, because boxing Wilder at 6'7" is not the same as boxing a guy like Andy Ruiz, who's 6'2" and showed up in poor condition and out of shape. Again, it's not Joshua's fault that Ruiz showed up in bad shape, but that was the reality we could all see once he took his shirt off. Looks bigger, can't throw punches, things like that. We don't have to worry about these things with Deontay Wilder. That's just a fact. Year round, I've seen Deontay Wilder at other people's fights, at his own fights, and he's in shape, you know? So he stays in shape. He stays ready. He stays muscular, athletic, and lean. Tyson Fury has done a good job of keeping his weight within a certain threshold, unlike 3 years ago. So these are dangerous fights for Anthony Joshua. Tyson Fury, for the reason of he's 6'9", so he can give anyone problems. He's confident. He probably gained confidence watching the Ruiz fight, a 6'2" fighter, do that to him. And he probably has made judgments on Joshua after those fights. Same thing with Wilder. Why would Wilder be afraid of Joshua when Joshua's leaning down, trying to, you know, just doing whatever to figure out? Like I said, Joshua did what he had to do for Ruiz, but unless he's fighting another 6'2" guy who's going to, you know, eat and not be able to throw punches and is that same size, same reach, all these other fights, USYK, Tyson Fury, Wilder, Daniel Dubois, Luis Ortiz, Dillian White rematch, they're all going to be different. We've never seen Dillian White even, or Luis Ortiz, have a fight where they looked and didn't throw punches. Even Dillian White wasn't in great shape versus REMATCH, and he threw more, you know, punches with conviction. He was still swinging for the fences type stuff. So that's my comments. And John David Jackson, let me know what you guys think. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. If you love what I'm doing, smash the like button. As always, hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video, is Ego signing off. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button. And you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.